The advising program is your support net. We're the net underneath you. We're the ones making sure that you get in touch with the resources that are going to be valuable for you. We're the ones that help you understand your curriculum requirements. How many more of this do you need? Have you finished that requirement? We'll help you find a good time to take those things. A lot of our students, whether they're transfer students or first-time freshmen, have this "I have to get this done right now" mentality. Well, the reality is we space things out to make it as academically comfortable as possible, so that you not only have time to do well in your classes, but you also have time to do the other things that are going to make you comprehensive and competitive for whatever it is that you want to do next. Which I forgot to ask about, by the way. What are you thinking of doing with your biology degree?
Get into med school.
Medical school? Okay.
Probably research.
Okay. And the probably part, totally fine. An equally acceptable answer to either of the ones that you gave is, "I have no idea." That's okay too. The training that you will get as a scientist in MCB, the critical thinking skills, the problem solving skills, the reading comprehension skills, the teamwork building, those are going to be applicable no matter what you want your career path to be. And the content is going to be common to most of the things that MCB majors who graduate from our program are interested in doing. So it doesn't matter if you know what you, or think you know what you want to do right now. It's also okay if you change your mind sometime along the way. We're not going to say, "Oh, I don't think you should do research. I don't think you should go to medical school." We're not going to make you change your mind, but we're going to be receptive to the conversation if you say, "You know what, I'm not sure about this med school thing anymore because I was talking to somebody who made me aware of genetic counseling and I'd never even heard of that before, and boy, that sounds interesting." We'll have that conversation. So what you need to do is come talk to us. We have a lot of advisors. In your handout packet here on the first sheet past the top one, actually on the top sheet, both of them, both of these first two pieces of paper have a bunch of names on it. Those are all MCB advisors. Now you're probably going to wonder, after hearing how great biology advising is, your first question is probably going to be, okay, well, who's my advisor? I love that question. I love when an MCB student asks, "Who's my advisor?" because my answer is awesome. My answer is, as I do as a teacher and an advisor, I will often answer your question with a question. So you ask me, let's do a little role playing here. Ask me, who's my advisor?
Who's my advisor?
Who do you want it to be? That's a great answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
What it means is you get to pick anybody on this list you want, as many times as you want, to talk about whatever you want, and you can change it up. In fact, I would encourage you to schedule a few get-to-know-you appointments with somebody on this list. If you find someone that you really feel you're going to connect with on a professional level, or even a personal level, that's the one you want to consider your advisor. Keep looking. I would suggest that if you go through all of the people on this list and can't find someone you get along with, maybe it's you. Just saying.
Are these also teachers?
Yes, several of them are also teachers.
Okay.
So we have in the stable of advisors in MCB, we have some full-time advisors. That's what they do all day, every day. And we have some part-time advisors with additional responsibilities. For example, Tina is the coordinator of MCB advising. It's what she thinks about all the time. I am one of the part-time advisors. I spend about half my time doing advising and half my time doing teaching. And the breakdown isn't always 50-50 for the advising and other stuff. So yeah, it's a good question. And we will never tell you, "Oh, well, you saw Tim last time, you should see Tim again." You can see Tim again if you want, but you could also see Aurora the time after that. You could see somebody every week about a different topic if that's what you wanted. The most important thing to us is that you're scheduling appointments, not with whom you're scheduling appointments. So come talk to us. We don't have any maximums on the number of times you can talk to an advisor. And I doubt you're going to want to talk to somebody every day. But weekly, every other week, every month, sure, why not? If that's what you need to be confident in your progression through our curriculum, then we're here for you. There isn't technically a minimum number of advising appointments that we require either, unless you go on probation, but we don't want to think about that right now. However, there is sort of an unwritten minimum. Please, 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 please come talk to us at least once a semester just to check in. And as transfer students, we are going to actually make you come in once in your first semester just to check in. I'll talk about that in just a second, why we do that. Every other semester, please check in with us at least once a term, preferably right before the time that the campus starts to register for classes for the next semester. You're both college students already. You understand that you think about classes a semester at a time, not a year at a time, right? Well, we do the same thing here. So in October-ish, we'll be having conversations about stuff you register for in November that you'll take in the spring. And then in the spring, around March-ish, you'll have conversations with an advisor about what you're going to register for in April and start those classes in August. So we think ahead, and we encourage you to come talk to us. All you have to do is give us your thoughts. Say, I was thinking about taking this and this and this and this other thing for the coming semester, and let us chime in with our professional opinions on that. Do we think that it sounds like a balanced workload? Does it leave you time to do extracurricular activities? Is it a wise schedule based on your performance from the term before? We don't want to make a potential problem even worse by overloading things. That's our job, to make sure that you're making the best choices possible, or the ones that are in your best interest anyway. So at least once a semester, check in with us for that reason. What kind of questions do you have now about advising? You kind of know who we are, what we're here for. I really want to stress that we're more than just course pickers. We do a lot more, at least we're here to do a lot more than just help you understand what classes you still need to finish to graduate. Yes, we do that, but we also get you in touch with resources. Do you know where the Counseling Center is?
No.
Why not? You're a U of I student. Do you know where the Financial Aid Office is? Why not? You're a U of I student. Do you see how ridiculous that question is?
Yeah.
Why would you be expected to know these things magically? That what, the day you accept your offer of admission, you just know these things? No, you're not expected to. You know who does? People who've been here a really long time. That's who knows where the stuff is. That's our job, to get you in touch. Yes, please.
Do we just email them for an advising appointment?
Well, there's 3 ways that you kind of got to one of my next agenda points, and thank you for doing that, doing my job for me. There are 3 ways that you can schedule an appointment with us. One, that office that we walk right by on the way into this one, that's the nerve center for MCB advising. The receptionist at the desk, his name is Barry. You could walk up to Barry's desk anytime during business hours and say, I'd like to schedule an appointment with an MCB advisor. Guess what his first question is going to be for you?
Who?
Yeah, who do you want to talk to? And it's okay also to say, look, I don't know any of these people. I'll take whoever's available on Tuesday morning. It's okay to say, I'll take first available. You don't even have to know a name. Or you can just do, okay, well, it looks like a Chester today. You can do that too.
Okay.
You can stop by Barry's office and schedule an appointment that way. We have a phone number that's printed on this paper in several places, the 333-6774 number. That's the phone that rings at Barry's desk. So if you call that number, Barry will ask you the same question.
Okay.
Who do you want to visit with? And he has access to all our calendars, so he knows when I'm available and when Tina's available and when Aurora's available. And the third and easiest way to schedule an appointment, because you're not limited to just doing this during business hours, this quick URL here, the goillinois.edu/MCBAPPT, kind of buried in the middle of that second paragraph, that's a quick link that bounces you to an online scheduling system where you see our little pictures. If you click on the picture or the name beside it, it shows you that individual's calendar for the next 5 weeks.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what my other school had.
Yeah, it's a wonderful system, and it has become quickly the go-to way for most of our students to schedule their appointments. So that's how you get in touch with us. Give you a good appreciation of why you would get in touch with us. We want to be there to answer those questions. The job of an advisor is to keep the little things from becoming big things. Little things are easier to solve and have more options. Big things can keep you from graduating and tend to have fewer options available to you, and most of them are not painless, if you know what I'm saying. So at the first sign of any kind of struggle, just come talk to an advisor. And I don't just mean academic struggles. As I mentioned that I was going to come back to this whole, why do we make transfer students come talk to us? Because this transition is going to be more challenging than you think it is. I'm not saying that you're not smart. I'm not saying that you're not wise and not mature. I'm not suggesting any of that. I don't know either one of you. How would I know how wise and mature and smart you are? What I am saying is that you've never been a U of I student before. And the transition from anywhere else to a new place comes with some challenges, especially when the new place is a campus much, much larger than the one you're used to, or in a very different environment. California and Illinois are very different environments, and you're going to notice some differences. And UC Riverside is not as big a campus as Illinois. It's bigger than one of the city colleges of Chicago, but it's still small compared to the 40,000 plus students that are milling about this campus at any point in time. This is a big place. It's easy to get lost. It's easy to feel anonymous, but I like to think that on a campus this big, the resources are so vast that you have more things to take advantage of than you have time to take advantage of all of them. So there's good with the bad, of course. And I also firmly believe that you can make this place feel as anonymous or as personal as you want it to be. If you want to sit in the back of a large classroom and not talk to anybody, you can do that. Nobody's going to call you out. But if you want to sit in the front row and be the one who raises your hand all the time and talks to the professor after class and gets to know that person well enough to ask for a strong letter of recommendation someday, hint, hint, you can do that too. You can let people get to know you. It's kind of on you when it comes to talking to an advisor or getting to know your professors. It is on you to take that step, but I think you will find that the people in your professional life are going to be very receptive to that around here. Another one of my favorite cliches, I love metaphors and cliches, and one of my favorite cliches is that the people around here are looking for reasons to say yes, not looking for reasons to say no. Give us a reason. Give us a reason to help you, and we'll be glad to help. This is not only a big campus, this is also a big major. MCB has about 2,000-ish students in it at any point in time, and that's a lot of people to get information out to, and they don't all receive information the same way. And we in MCB have a lot of information to disseminate, so we try to be aware of different ways that people like to get information, and that's what all of these icons are on the bottom of this front page. These are the different ways that we send information out to you. We have a Facebook page that you can like. We have a Twitter feed you can follow. We do blogs for career services and stuff. I'll come back to the YouTube channel in just a second. Why would we have a YouTube channel? There's very good answers for that. This newspaper icon, that's called Roadmap. That's our email newsletter that comes out once a week, and it has everything in it that we think our students would want to know about. And because there's a lot of students and that's a lot of information, these can get pretty dense. There could be 25 different things that we're talking about in any weekly edition. They're not all going to be relevant to any one person. Some of them might be targeted at new freshmen, others might be targeted at graduating seniors. Well, no one person can be both of those things. So what we do is put a bulleted list table of contents at the top. I encourage you, before you make a habit of just clicking the delete key because your email inbox is already full enough, at least look at the table of contents. See what's in that issue. Chances are something in there is going to grab your attention. Not all of the things will grab any one person's attention, but something probably will. You scroll down to that relative section of the newsletter, you read the blurb, follow the link if there's a link, and now you have useful information. This can be scholarship announcements, new course offerings, RSO, Registered Student Organization meetings. Hey, we're having our info session on Thursday night and there's going to be free pizza at 5 o'clock. You might want to know about the free pizza, right? So this is how people let us know, can you tell your students about this? And we say, sure, write it up, we'll put it in the newsletter the next week. A lot of those things are repeated in these other channels, but not all of them. Everything goes into Roadmap. That's sort of the one place you know you're going to get all of your information. Now let's return to the YouTube channel. There are two reasons why MCB Advising has our own YouTube channel. One, workshop recordings. We get the same questions a lot. What's this undergraduate research thing that I keep hearing about? Should I do that? That's just one example of many of questions that come up so often that when the advisors get together and meet every week and we share our stories, if we share with each other that, yeah, a lot of our students are asking about this, chances are we'll put a workshop together to discuss it. so that all students who are available can come on that Tuesday night at 4:30 and listen for an hour about this topic that a lot of them seem to be interested in. But you may have class at 4:30 on a Tuesday. So what are you going to do? You can't go, right? We don't want you to skip class to attend a workshop. Well, as long as it's okay with the person doing the presentation, we put a camera in the back of the room and we record it. Okay. Then we process the video, put it on our YouTube channel, and now everybody can benefit from the workshops. So that's one thing that's on there. Another thing that's on there, and this will become more relevant in a few minutes, we have interviews with the faculty members that teach our upper level classes. They get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long they want to talk. Well, not however long. We do cut it off at some point because they'll just keep talking about how great their class is. We give them a few minutes to discuss, why should you take my class? You know, this is the next best thing to knocking on their door and saying, Dr. X, and I was looking in the catalog, your class looked kind of cool, what do you do? Why should I take your class? This is sort of, we do the knocking for you. Sit a camera in front of them and say, tell a student why they should take your class. This is their sales pitch. And that's going to be really helpful in deciding whether a class might be a good fit for you. Because just reading a 2-sentence course description or a 3-word course title is not going to tell you how many tests there are going to be in that class, or what kind of content they cover, or what the prerequisites are, and if they're important, things like that. So there's the reasons why we have a YouTube channel. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is, what is MCB? And what I'm about to say sounds a little snooty. It's not intended to be pretentious, but MCB is not a department. Most of the majors on this campus come from a department. You can have a major in history that comes from the Department of History. But MCB isn't, there is no department of MCB. We're a school. And I know that sounds pretentious. Oh, we're a school, not a department. It's not pretentious. It's a designation. A school is a collection of departments. And in this case, the breadth of MCB leads to all of those opportunities you were just alluding to. MCB is the Department of Biochemistry, the Department of Cell and Developmental Biology, the Department of Microbiology, the Department of Molecular and Integrative Physiology, the program in Neuroscience, the program in Biophysics and Quantitative Biology. Those are the things that make up MCB. So when you say I'm an MCB major, what you're acknowledging is that you have access to all that stuff. All those classes, all those faculty members and their labs, all of those career opportunities, and on the other side, so you have a flyer in your handout that says degree requirements. On the flip side of that is our glossy, look how fancy MCB is sheet. And you'll notice that it lists the departments and the programs and the possible careers. This is just a bulleted list. This is representative. This is not an exhaustive list of all of the things that people can do with an MCB degree. If you find that you have a skill or an interest, but you're trained to be a biologist, we can probably find a career path for you to take advantage of your skills and your knowledge at the same time. And if you'd like to draw, but you know a lot about genetics, maybe you could be a scientific illustrator. If you like to do writing and editing, you fancy yourself a good editor, maybe you work for a scientific journal and you proofread documents that come in. You could be an editor for a journal. There's all kinds of ways to combine an interest with a knowledge base. But then, of course, there's the big ones. Yes, you can go into medical school and dental school and pharmacy school. You can get into PhD programs and master's degree programs. You could go to work for the government. This government agencies, we had to use some little teeny tiny print on this to show you that there are a bunch of government agencies that love people with our kind of training. And this also is a representative list, not an exhaustive list. If you're a good communicator, maybe you become a spokesperson for the Center for Disease Control. You need to know enough about the science and enough about how to communicate to explain to someone, to explain to Joe Sixpack why he should be worried about the West Nile virus, but in terms that he can understand, right? That's being able to combine a skill with training. So I encourage you to think about what you would love to do. If you could make your own job, what would you enjoy doing? And then let's find a way to make that biology, right? That's kind of what, and the breadth of MCB allows for a lot of potential there. So that's kind of who we are. And within the School of MCB, there's graduate programs, there's research programs, and then there's the undergraduate instructional and advising program. And that's where we live, and it's where you're going to live during your time here. So let's talk about classes. Now, there are general education requirements that they addressed in the college meeting that you just got out of. I'm not going to double dip on that. If you ever have questions about what your gen ed requirements are, feel free to ask. But we're not going to spend time in this meeting talking about how many humanities classes you need.
Yeah, but so for those gen ed classes they were talking about, like, what exactly are those? Like, so it's like for your first semester, you just go to do that every single day? Like, what is it?
Well, a class doesn't necessarily meet every single day.
Yeah, it's usually twice.
Or 3.
Yeah.
Most classes, I think, are kind of either Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour, or Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
There are clearly exceptions to that because you've got some 1 credit hour classes that may only meet once a week. You've got 5 credit hour classes like calculus that meet every day. But I'd say by and large, the average class, the typical class on this campus is 3 credit hours. So you're going to have 3 contact hours per week with a professor or TA. The gen ed thing is a way for students to be balanced and not focus only on classes in their major. So science majors have to take some non-science stuff. English majors have to take some quantitative and natural science stuff. It gives everybody some balance. And what we want, the balance was actually a very good word to use there because that's what we as biology advisors want of our students every semester. There will never be a semester in your career here where we advise you to take all STEM classes. You're going to need to take physics and calculus and organic chemistry and genetics and statistics. So you're going to need you to take all those in this fall. That's never going to happen. Every semester, we're looking for balance. Let's find out what science classes are most important right now, get them in your schedule, and then we'll fill in the rest with gen eds and free electives. It isn't all general education classes that flesh out your schedules. It's also free electives. I like to call them mandatory fun. You have to do them, but you get to pick anything you want. We've got vegetable gardening classes and ice skating classes and badminton classes. It's crazy, the breadth of courses on this campus. Again, an advantage to being someplace so big.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of resources.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the non-gen ed kind of stuff. Well, like I said, your advisor every semester will help you keep an eye on what all of your curriculum requirements are, including the composition classes and language and gen eds and things that you may not have done yet. There will be time to get all of those other things finished. You don't have to feel like you need to be in a rush to get those done. But let's talk about what's left, the meat of the biology degree. So here's something that I like to explain to students. It usually comes up in the context of, why do I have to take math? I'm a biology student. Why should I have to take math? Well, here's why. Biology is just the application of chemistry, right? Biology is just chemistry in a cell. So to understand biology, you have to understand chemistry. Chemistry is just the application of physics. Why does chemistry work? Because molecules randomly collide with each other and force equals mass times acceleration, right? So chemistry is just based on principles of physics, and physics is just applied calculus. So guess what biology majors get to take along the way?
Calculus.
All of the above, right? You get to take math and physics and chemistry and biology. So I'm going to talk about what those requirements are, but I'm going to save the best for last. So we'll start at the bottom here with the math. The math requirements of an MCB major are 1 semester of real calculus, no business calc. It has to actually be a full-fledged calculus course. And your choice, but you only have 2 things to choose from. Either Calc 2 or a biostatistics course. We have a specialized class on this campus that not a lot of campuses have, so it's unusual but not unheard of for students to transfer in a biostatistics course. You may have taken a class that comes across as Stat 100. That one won't count towards our degree if you want your statistics to count as your second math class. We have a specialized class on this campus called Statistics 212, biostatistics. So Calc 1 and either Calc 2 or biostats. And that's it for the required math. Someone interested in bioengineering is going to go way beyond that. Oh, speaking of that ladder is an important, there's an acronym for that ladder. It's called the BCPM. When people, especially pre-meds, and pre-pharmacy and pre-dentistry, the pre-health professions, one of the most important numbers that you're going to have that people will want to know is, what's your BCPM? What they're asking is, what's your grade point average in biology, chemistry, physics, and math? Those are the things that are the most important to them. And if you're really keenly observant, you may have noticed that that's not in alphabetical order. It's in order of importance. BCPM. They care the most, far and away, the most about the biology and the chemistry. Physics, kind of a gray area for a lot of programs, and then math. The irony here is that it can count against you, but they don't really care about it. You have to do well in the class because it's going to factor into that GPA, but very, very few programs actually care about your calculus experience. Graduate programs in Bio-E would care a lot about your calculus experience. So let's work our way back up the BCPM ladder. We talked about the math, let's talk about physics. The way to describe the physics requirement is a little awkward for me because I have to make you aware of two paths that you can go down. But I need to make a statement that's super important, then I'm going to describe those two options, and then I'm going to come back and make that same statement again so you understand how important it is. Here's the statement. You have to finish one sequence or the other in its entirety. Now, what are the two paths? Simply put, one of them is based on calculus, the other one's not. So we have a non-calc based sequence called Physics 101 and 102. 2 semesters, 5 credit hours, lecture, discussion, lab, all rolled into one class. That's why they're 5 credit hours. You're going to be very busy in those classes. It uses algebra and trigonometry as the math behind the homework and quiz and exam problems. There is no calculus requirement for Physics 101 and 102. It tends to be good enough for just about all MCB majors, but maybe not all, and certainly not someone who wanted to go into an engineering field. I think Physics 101 and 102 would be inappropriate for someone who wants to end up in an engineering field. So there is another option. It's a calc-based sequence that's 4 classes but 3 semesters, because there's a Physics 211 that's a full semester, 212 is a full semester, then 213 and 214 are both half-semester courses that you generally take in the same term. One for the first 8 weeks, the other for the second 8 weeks. So in 3 semesters of calc-based physics, you get those 4 classes. And the posted prerequisites for that sequence go through Calc 3. So understand that if you're an MCB major, you are voluntarily signing up for additional calculus so that you can finish the additional physics that is not a graduation requirement. And if you stay on a pre-health profession track, you get to decide whichever path you want, but choose wisely, because you don't really get bonus points for taking accelerated courses, and they all factor into your GPA the same way. So you are potentially risking your GPA to take a class that no one's really going to be that impressed about, if it really comes down to it. The people who would be impressed about you taking calc-based physics are people who are in a quantitative field like bioengineering or even biophysics, which kind of allows me to reintroduce a point that I made earlier about the breadth of MCB. If you're wondering, why would anyone take this sequence when they could take this sequence and just be done with it? Well, the answer is there's somebody sitting at the table right now who may benefit much more from this sequence and the availability of calc-based physics. But if you had told me that you were interested in being a biophysicist, you should take that too. Not every field in MCB, not every career path in MCB expects the same things. So we give our students that choice. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Because, coming back to that statement I said I was going to repeat, you have to finish one sequence or the other in its entirety. Here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to say, oh, I'm up to the challenge of the calc-based physics. I'm going to take 211. You take it, you get a C minus. You say, well, the heck with that. I don't want that anymore. I'll just take Physics 102, and then I'll have my year of physics. No, you won't. You'll go back and you'll take 101 and 102. And by the way, now you're taking 3 semesters of physics anyway. So choose wisely. Then let's move up the BCPM ladder. We've got chemistry next. I'm going to assume that you probably took some general chemistry last year, and you have already mentioned you brought in your Gen Chem. So if those come across as being transferable courses, we don't need to talk about general chemistry. What comes after general chemistry is organic chemistry. since you only did 1 year at Riverside, I'm sure you haven't taken Orgo yet, am I right?
I
Okay.
didn't.
What about you? Have you taken organic chemistry?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see how it transfers over
Okay.
and whether there are any lingering classes that you might need to take. We'll cross our fingers and hope the answer is no.
Yeah.
But for Nicholas, so the expectation of organic chemistry for an MCB major is this, and I have to word this very carefully. We need our students to have been exposed to all of the topics in the world of organic chemistry. That's what we need. Notice what I didn't mention, how deep that knowledge needs to be. You're not a chemistry major. You don't need to know everything about organic chemistry. You need to, are you familiar with the phrase jack of all trades, master of none?
Yeah.
That's what you're going to be. That's what we need you to be as a biology major, as an MCB major. We need you to know a little bit about all of the things in Orgo, but you don't have to be a master of any of it. So we have a course that covers a year's worth of topics, but trims out all the stuff in the book that you don't need to know if you're not a chemistry major, and what's left can be done in 1 semester. So you're covering the whole book, but you're not covering all of the sections in any of the chapters, if you understand what I'm saying. And that 1 semester survey course, it surveys the world of organic chemistry and gives you a taste of everything, is called Chem 232. That is a course that most MCB majors take as the organic chemistry component. There's a required companion lab called Chem 233. They do not have to be taken concurrently. You might have one of them in your schedule this fall and you take the lab in the spring. That's totally fine. Or you can take them together. That's fine too. Talk with your advisor about that. But that would, if you wanted it to, finish off all of the required chemistry as an MCB major. You would never have to take another class that starts with the letters CHEM. But here's the catch. You said you're pre-med. And to get into medical school, you need 8 to 10 credit hours of organic chemistry with lab, and we're going to give you 6. So what do? That's a problem, right? Well, our chemistry department realized quickly that by creating a scenario where they were helping you out, they've actually hurt your chances of getting into medical school. So they created an optional, and that's why it doesn't appear on this list, there's an optional Orgo 2 class for people who went through Chem 232 called Chem 332. It's Orgo 2 for people who had the survey course. It's realistically Orgo 2 for people on a professional track that need 2 semesters of Orgo. It is optional. You don't have to take it to graduate. You may choose to take it to feed personal interests or professional school recommendations and requirements. Talk to an advisor. We're going to want to know how things go for you in Orgo 1 before we decide whether Orgo 2 as an option would be a good idea. It is potentially worth pointing out that if you take Orgo 2 by your own choice, you're now 1 chemistry class away from a chem minor, because biology majors have to take so much chemistry anyway. You're within striking distance of a chemistry minor if that sort of thing interests you. If it doesn't, if you would only be taking that last chemistry class because of the minor, not because of your interest in the content, then I say don't bother. Minors aren't going to impress anybody. They should be for your personal enrichment. So if you want to take that last chem class because you look at the list of available courses and you think to yourself, wow, that looks good, I would like to take several of these, sure, then knock yourself out, you'll have time. But if you're looking at that list saying, I don't want to take any of those things, then the minor is not important enough to complete. Any minor, I'm not dissing on chemistry. If a minor isn't interesting to you, then don't bother with it because no one else in the world cares. A minor should be something you care about, not something somebody else cares about. There's the chemistry story. What questions do you have about that part of the story?
What's the other?
Oh, I wondered if you would ask about that. There is an accelerated, there's the version that everybody else takes, everybody on campus except the chemistry majors, take 232 in the lab. The chemistry majors and chemical engineers take 236 and 436. That's a 2-semester required sequence that I don't usually bring up unless it gets asked about because it's so accelerated that it has as a prereq accelerated general chemistry. You probably brought in a class, I haven't looked at your record so I don't know, but you probably brought in a general chemistry class that comes across as what we call Chemistry 102 for Gen Chem 1 and Chemistry 104 for Gen Chem 2. we would need you to take Chem 202 and 204 to be ready for the accelerated organic sequence. Or you could, there are a couple of, there's a step-up course that you could take to get ready for the accelerated orgo sequence, but then you're just adding additional classes to your schedule, and most students are not interested in doing that. It's an option for you. If you really, really are set on taking that accelerated orgo, we can talk about how that is an option for you. But it's sort of it presents the same inherent risk as taking the accelerated physics sequence does when you don't need it for your professional goals as well. Chem 232, especially if you take the optional companion course 332, is plenty for being ready for biochemistry, for being ready for the MCAT or the DAT or the OAT, and being competitive for admissions. None of these schools that you might be applying to are going to require you to have taken accelerated physics or accelerated gen chem or accelerated orgo. They are not requirements. Again, considering that they look first at your numbers, if you do enough damage to your GPA by taking accelerated courses, you never even give them an opportunity to see that the reason why your GPA was so low is because you were taking accelerated courses. They haven't even looked that far yet. They're just like, well, that GPA is low. Never mind. So be careful, is what I'm saying. We're ready to talk biology. So this is the funnest part. Now, the biology story is one I like to tell in reverse chronological order. I'm going to start with by the time you graduate and work back to next Monday. Right? What are we going to do this fall? So by the time you graduate, you're going to need 15 credit hours or more of coursework from this piece of paper. This is the approved list of advanced MCB courses. It's one of the least fancy pieces of paper we have, but it is the best. This is why it's awesome to be an MCB major. So you'll notice that this is front and back. There's 40-some classes on this list, and it covers everything that MCB is. There's biophysics, there's biochemistry, there's genetics, there's cell biology, microbiology, neuroscience, physiology. Everything we are has class representation on this list. And you're only required to take 4 or 5 of these classes. You need to get to 15 credit hours and a minimum of 4 classes. Since most of them are 3 credit hour courses, realistically we're looking at 5 classes. All right, so by the time you graduate, 5 of these. One of those is going to have to be a standalone lab class, not undergraduate research that you might be doing on your own. You need to take a lab class that's on our approved list. Those are the ones with the little asterisks in the middle column. So, realistically, you're going to take 4 lecture courses and a lab course. That's what most of our students do. All right, now, how do you decide which 5 you want? Well, I don't know that integrative neuroscience is descriptive enough for me to know whether I would enjoy that class. What would you do if you wanted to know more about that class?
We'll look it up on the website.
Okay, and you get somebody's written description. What would be even better than that? If you really wanted to know what was going to go on in that class?
Ask the professor.
Ask the professor. What if you don't have access to the professor?
Email a advisor.
Remember this?
Or,
Remember the YouTube channel that has the interviews with all of these people? We've done the work for you. We've already given them an opportunity to give you a sales pitch for their class. So when the time comes to pick your choices, I strongly encourage you to check out those videos. Check out those interviews. Let them, look, I'm not saying that after 10 minutes you're going to know whether you'll love the class. But if they can't hold your attention for 10 minutes, it's probably not a class you're going to want to take. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
All right, so now that's the good news. This is an awesome list, and you're going to love these courses. Again, I would say if you can't find 5 classes on this list you like, this probably isn't a major for you. You're going to your problem is most likely going to be, I want to take more, but I don't have enough time. Well, you can take as many of them as you have time for, but there are minimums. Okay, now here's the bad news. I don't know which 5 you're going to want to take. So how do I know to get you ready for those? Because these are pretty tough classes, and I don't know which 5 you're going to want to take. And they're probably not going to be the same 5 as he wants. So another way to phrase this issue is, how do I get a student ready for anything on this list without knowing what they're going to want to take? And our curriculum committee, a long time ago, got together and asked each other that question. What do our students need to know to be ready for any of the advanced work? And the answer is, if one of our students, if any of our students, is really well versed in molecular genetics, eukaryotic cell biology, and biochemistry, they're ready for anything on this list. So I like to think of this as the dessert menu. I've just showed you how good those cookies look. And now I'm saying, not until you eat your vegetables. You don't get to these until you get through the core. The core is your vegetables. This is the dessert menu. The core is your vegetables, and the core comes in the form of a 3-semester sequence. There will be no variation on this. You don't double up on the core courses. You will take a semester of molecular genetics with a companion lab. That's called MCB 250 and 251. You'll take a semester of eukaryotic cell biology and a companion lab with it. That's called 252 and 253. And then you'll take a semester of lecture only, no companion lab, biochemistry. That's called 354. Like I said, you're not going to double up on these. We teach 250 and 252 at the same time to save you from yourself. Because too many of our students, especially transfer students who feel like they're behind somehow, are tempted to try to take them at the same time, and it is a spectacular failure. You need to trust me on this. The core courses need to be taken in sequence in those 3 semesters. Now, this is not going to be an issue for you whatsoever because you're coming in as an early student. You've only done 1 year of college. You were probably expecting to be here for 3 years, right? It is often an issue for students who've done 2 years or 2.5 somewhere else and think, I'm only going to spend 2 years at Illinois. Maybe, maybe not. Because if we do a little bit of bookkeeping here, let's think about timeline. The 3-semester sequence of the core is 3 semesters, and then you have your advanced courses. And there's 15 credit hours from this. You're not going to take 15 hours of advanced courses in 1 semester. It's not going, it can't happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to burden yourself.
Well, I don't even think you could do it logistically. I don't think you could find 5 classes that don't conflict with each other. It's just not going to happen. So now you can expect at least 2 semesters of advanced coursework, and now we're at 5 semesters. So one of the things that we let all of our students know before they sign on the dotted line is, this is a great program and we're very proud of what we do, but you can expect to be in our curriculum for 5 semesters or 6. So what that means in working back is if this comes last and the core comes before that, then how do we get you ready for a very intense core? Because 250 is not an easy class. Biochemistry is a notorious class. How do we get you ready for these things? We have a foundation course called 150. That's my class. That's the one I teach. That has as its syllabus 40% genetics, 40% cell biology, 20% biochemistry. It's the job of MCB 150 to serve as the hub that has spokes that go out to it to the 3 courses in the core. So, depending on how you did on that placement test, the MCB diagnostic test, that's how we know, do you have a background, not just in content, but in critical thinking and reading problems that aren't regurgitation questions. The questions that came from that diagnostic test, I don't know if you even remember taking it. It was probably earlier in the summer. But the questions in there came from MCB 150 exams. It demonstrates not just content, but also expectation. It demonstrates what we expect you to be able to answer in making connections. It's much more, in MCB classes, it's going to be much more about the connections that you make between this bit of content and that bit of content than did you memorize what's on this flashcard and memorize what's on that flashcard. With the exception of maybe an anatomy class where it is just bones and muscles, we are not a flashcard major. Right, so we are a comprehension major. We're a connections major. We turn out students who are problem solvers. They're leaders, but they also work well in groups. They're able to do these things because they understand what they've learned, what's been presented to them along the way. They have to. They don't make it through the major if they don't get it, if they don't learn it, if they don't understand what they're being taught, not just memorize what's being given to them. If you do the self-exploration and uncover that you really are kind of a memorizer and not yet a learner, then I encourage you to start in 150. I'm not trying to drum up business for my class. It's big enough as it is. But I spend just as much time trying to train you to be critical thinkers. You feel like the expectations that have been laid in front of you up to this point have been, read this and memorize it, and I'm going to give you a bunch of multiple choice questions that just ask you if you memorized it or not. I don't know that MCB 250 is a good first class in the MCB curriculum, because 150 starts a little slower and builds the skills. I try to spend as much time on the skills as I do on the content in my class, knowing what's coming for you in your future classes. They don't do as much of that in the other classes because they assume, once you learn something, you don't have to learn it again, which is, again, a good difference between learning and memorizing. You can memorize a phone number, but after you've memorized those digits, it's gone. You'd have to memorize it again the next time you wanted to memorize that same number. But if you learn it because it's yours, I still remember the phone number that I had when I was 5. Yeah. Because I learned it. I didn't just memorize it, right? So we're going to try to teach you to learn stuff, because then it's you. Then it's part of you. I forgot to mention that the other side of the biology fence has a representation course in it called IB 150 that you are required to have by the time you graduate. If you bring it in from another institution, fine, we're not going to test you on it. And there's no other IB classes that you will be obligated to take. It is a graduation requirement. If you don't have it, if you don't have a transferable equivalent for IB 150, you don't have to take it before you take any MCB classes. You could take it next summer at another institution and transfer it in. You could take it here online and take the class from anywhere. You could be in Russia and take the class next summer if you wanted to be. Or you could fit it in sometime in the next couple of years that you're going to be here. It is a graduation requirement that's not going away, but its timing does not affect your performance in the MCB curriculum.
So we want to talk to you about a couple of options for classes that will assist you as transfer students.
Oh, yes.
There is a class called LAS 102. It is the Transfer Student Advantage. Yeah, so it's a course that was designed by transfer students for transfer students. We encourage you to take it. It's an option, not a requirement, but it's kind of an introduction to the University of Illinois and specifically the College of LAS, called LAS 102, the Transfer Student Advantage. The other one is only applicable to you if you decide to start an MCB 250 or if you're prepared to start an MCB 250. So that's your molecular genetics course. The only reason you would start in that is if you actually have a course that transferred in as MCB 150, and after talking to your advisor, after taking the diagnostic test, you feel you're ready for molecular genetics on this campus. If you start in MCB 250, there's a companion course that we can get you into. It's a merit workshop. And it would be, I think it's MCB 299. You get an additional credit hour for it, and basically what you do is you meet an extra 2 hours a week with a group of students who are also in MCB 250 and a facilitator. It's a teaching assistant, so they are an instructor, but the class is taught in a format where you sit together at round tables with maybe 3 or 4 other students, and you get a chance to kind of rehash information that you've learned in lecture. You will probably be given extra problem sets that you can go through. And instead of the instructor or the facilitator standing at the front of the class and talking to you and giving you more information, what they're doing is encouraging you to talk about it with each other, to learn from each other. Maybe you don't understand one thing, but you do, and so you can kind of teach that to the other person at the table. It's a really nice program. It's what instructors call time on task. So you're actually spending 2 hours in a structured environment with other people who are in the class and a facilitator. It's stuff that you should be doing on your own outside of class, but we give you a credit hour for it, and if you show up and participate, you're going to get a grade in the class in a science course.